That's what it means. It's beautiful. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to our show on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. We're Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. We're invigorating talk that has everything to do with your well-being. We have a great show that has to do with your well-being today, so stick around to listen to this. But we are an interactive show, and before I introduce myself and my co-host here, we want to invite you to become part of the conversation. So to do that, you can go straight to our Facebook page, Del and Debbie Mind, Body, Soul, and watch us stream live, make a comment, ask a question. We keep it up during our show so we can be interactive. Or you can call us here at UBN Studios at area code 323-284-7826. And there you have it. So do join us. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Debbie Carlin Boyle. I am certified as a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and an integrative nutrition holistic coach. And I help people find balance in their life with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. And right next to me, to my right...
Hi, I'm Debi Jones, and I'm a transformational coach and a 3 principles practitioner and teacher. And I help my clients to achieve psychological well-being in all areas of their life, regardless of their external circumstances. And today we have a fabulous show. Oh my goodness. We're going to hear the story of one woman's long and painful search for health and happiness. So we are so thrilled to be joined by poet, author, writing teacher, and empowerment coach, Bella Maya Carter. Did I say it correctly? Mahaya. I knew I was going to get it wrong. So Bella will be sharing with us her latest book. It's her memoir entitled Raw, A Journey from Anxiety to Joy. So having gained mastery over her own health and well-being, Bella now shares her hard-earned wisdom with others, helping them to transform their lives on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. So welcome, Bella, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome, Bella. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us.
I'm really happy to be here.
And we're really thrilled to have you in your story, because I think this story can help a lot of people, because there's probably some people out there that have something similar going on and wouldn't be taking the route that you took to get to where you are today. So this could be very, very enlightening for them and empowering. But we like to start from the beginning, and we're nosy, so we want to know everything about where you were
that fabulous
born.
childhood that you grew up in.
Well, maybe I'll start with the book.
Okay,
I'll start with the book because it's really the start of my journey began when I had chronic stomach problems. And the only thing that my doctor could do for me was offer me medication. And while I thought the medication could be helpful in terms of alleviating symptoms, I wanted a cure. And I knew that it wouldn't cure. I knew that it would mask the symptoms. It would make them easier to deal with. But I really wanted a cure and not a cover-up.
Yeah. So what were the symptoms you were having?
I had a lot of pressure in my chest. I had a lot of digestive issues. A lot of I had mild gastroreflux, which was the official diagnosis.
Right.
And just chronic stomach problems.
From childhood?
No.
Okay.
When did they start?
This started in about my 40s.
Interesting.
And it happened. It just so happened to have happened at a time where I was beginning to feel like, oh, I turned 40, and I haven't accomplished the things in my life that I thought I would have accomplished by now.
Anxiety.
And so there was a thought in my head that I really wasn't even aware of at the time, because I was just swimming in it. It was just my reality, just like water is the reality for fish. But the thought was, I'm a failure. I'm a failure. I didn't do what I came here to do.
Yeah, sounds like a very early midlife crisis.
It was.
Existential crisis.
It was. You were looking. You took a look at where you were at so far, and you were unhappy with what you were looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
And that can manifest itself in many ways, and it doesn't just stay here. So that could be a big catalyst for what was going on. So then what?
So you went to a doctor.
It was. I went to a doctor, and the doctor said, you have gastroreflux. I'll give you some medication. But I don't know. I wanted a cure. I wanted to know, well, what is really going on? And he said, well, gastric reflux isn't really something you can cure. It's a physical condition. But I thought, I really made sense to me that there was a relationship between what I put in my mouth, in my stomach, and how my stomach was feeling. I thought that just seems like kitchen wisdom.
Yeah,
exactly. Big time,
logical.
It's just common sense, right?
So I went to the bookstore, and I came home. In those days, it was all hardcover books, no Kindle, and I came home with a stack of books, and it was my summer reading, and I was discovering that people were healing all kinds of physical ailments on a raw food diet. I'd never heard of a raw food diet, a raw vegan diet.
Now, what sort of ailments?
I mean, you name the ailment. People, I was reading about testimonials from people who had healed it. I mean, blood pressure, cancer, just a variety.
Autoimmune diseases, heart disease.
You name the disease.
Yes,
and people were finding ways to cure the disease through this diet.
Food is medicine.
That's absolutely right. Hippocrates. Medicine is our food, and food is our medicine.
Yes, I use that in all of my speeches.
And you're a nutritionist, so you know about this. So, I didn't really want to just change my diet immediately, so I just started making little changes. Like I started cutting out sugar, and
that's a big thing, though. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I started cutting out sugar, and that was a big deal. And then I was a chicken and fish eating vegetarian, not really a vegetarian. I ate that for a long time, but so I decided to cut out the meat and the fish, and then I cut out dairy. I just sort of gradually started cutting things out of my diet, and then just adding lots more fruits and vegetables, and nuts and seeds and legumes. And I started feeling better, but I just thought, but I didn't have the healing that I wanted. So I thought, I'm going to just give this a try, and I gave it a try, and amazing things started to happen. Yeah. So I tried the diet. In the beginning, I went through detox. It was kind of difficult.
Yeah, I read that. Period. Yeah, I read in your book how long it was taking you to.
But then after a couple of months, I noticed some interesting things. My stomach was feeling better. The lines on my face were starting to fade.
Wow.
I had toenail fungus that started going away. I started to feel the energy that I hadn't had since I was in my 20s. I started dancing again. I hadn't danced in many, many years.
I love that.
And it occurred to me that, wow, I don't think I've ever been this well nourished in my life. And my mom was an amazing Italian cook and just, nourished the heck out of her family, with all of her heart and soul with food. But I felt like I was experiencing, I remember the first day that I made myself a plate of zucchini pasta because pasta had always been my comfort food. But I had developed just an intolerance to it. I just felt like it sat in my chest like a clump.
It did.
Couldn't digest it.
Yeah.
But I made this zucchini pasta. I had a potato peeler and I peeled the zucchini.
Before the spiralizer.
Yeah, before the spiralizer, which I have now.
The zoodler. The zoodler.
Which I love.
Yeah.
But I did the potato peeler and I made a fresh sauce. I threw in fresh tomatoes, sun-dried tomatoes, olive oil, basil, garlic, all delicious things.
But this is raw.
This is
cooked,
raw. I put it in my food processor
yes.
and I just mixed it up and I didn't cook it. And I put it over the zucchini pasta. I went out to my garden. I ate a big bowl of pasta. And I was amazed that, number one, I had no physical discomfort. None. But the other thing that was really cool was that I felt this life inside me, almost like I could feel the life of the plant, of what I was eating, and then my backyard started to sparkle. It was like everything was more alive in my yard, and I felt this resonance. I mean, it sounds like I don't know. It sounds
doesn't sound weird to
you
me.
I'm going to use you when I go do all of my, food talks because you're the perfect example of how food changes everything. It really can.
So that was the beginning.
Yeah.
And things were good.
Yes.
And they weren't perfect. Now, of course,
So what were you still experiencing with the acid reflux?
I still felt a little bit like. All I can say is that I still had some stomach issues. So then I thought, well, okay, maybe there's a mental component to this. And I asked myself the question, what would a raw food diet for the mind look like?
Ooh, like that.
And that's how I ended up at the University of Santa Monica in their master's degree program of spiritual psychology.
Yes, and we were in the same year.
We were in the same program. That's how we met.
The same year.
Friends.
Same year. We met at school. And it was there that I realized that my thinking was sabotaging my health and happiness.
Yes.
And I really had no idea. I didn't even know what I was thinking. I didn't even know how much fear I had. I really didn't even know I was an anxious person. I never really experienced myself as an anxious person. I mean, I've accomplished a lot of things in my life. I've had a good life, but I think underneath all of the good stuff of my life, I've had a lot of fear, and that fear has created a lot of fearful thought, which creates fearful feelings. And really, it wasn't a problem in my life until we had 5 family deaths in 3 years, and I was the executor of a contentious estate and in the middle of a big family feud. And I developed an anxiety disorder. And one of my teachers at USM, Ron, used to say sometimes things need to come up in order to come out.
That's right. Get worse before they get better.
And again, the doctors wanted to give me medication to manage the anxiety. I was afraid to leave my house. That's where I was.
Wow.
But I also knew, it's not really a but, it's more of an and. I also knew that there was some kind of a healing opportunity there for me. And if I could somehow be with the anxiety, lean into it rather than away from it, that somehow that was going to create a healing in a way that just, taking a Xanax, which would, control it in the moment, but it wouldn't resolve. It would
cause other problems.
And it could cause other problems as well, but it wouldn't help me. It wouldn't help me move beyond and actually eventually heal.
Right.
It was the same kind of like the antacid medication. It was, like continue eating high acid food and just put medicine in you that could have other side effects.
Right.
Versus, well, change what you put into the system.
Well, exactly. And it's like, as you said, it can dilute the symptoms, but it's not getting to the root
it does.
cause.
It actually kills the nerve endings, if I understand how it works correctly. It kills the nerve endings so you don't feel the anxiety. It's not that the anxiety isn't there. You just don't feel it.
Yeah.
That's right.
And some people can have a very
feel.
adverse effect to it and actually create more anxiety.
That's what I was saying. It can cause secondary problems and make it worse. It just can make things worse. So you were very wise to be to have the intuition to know that wasn't the route that you should take when you were paralyzed
I think we all
like
have
that.
that wisdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
we
I think
do.
the problem is, and I doubted
but to
myself.
activate it as a whole, it's easier. The quick fix is always the easiest way to go, which you obviously didn't do with your stomach problems.
Yeah.
So it's not who you are, really, to go that route.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
but also, I was going to say, I mean, I was reading your book, and oh my God, you had accomplished so much, and I kept thinking, how could this woman think she hasn't accomplished all these things? I mean, it was pretty remarkable.
It's relative.
But
right?
I was just going to say, but if you have that perfectionism, which you had, it almost dismisses everything you'd accomplished, because you appeared to me on paper to be a highly functioning, productive human being.
Absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely. I am a recovering perfectionist.
Which can cause
That's
anxiety.
true. And I think that's
a
really important point that you're making. Yeah. And I grew up thinking that if I wasn't perfect, I didn't deserve to exist. I don't know where that came from. I think I don't know. It was just there. It was just something. I've spoken to my sisters about that, and especially one of my sisters. She said, "Well, God, I didn't feel that way." Yeah. So I don't think it was something that was necessarily imposed upon me by my family or my. I don't know. I was going to say by the culture, but I paused there because I think that perfectionism maybe is more common and imposed on women.
Well, I think it's both. Definitely nature and nurture. I mean, I think when you have 2 children of the same sex, Debbie has 2 daughters and I have 2 sons, you do sort of come out completely different.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily your environment. Sometimes you just come out with that personality or that nature.
Yes, I think that's true.
Yeah. So
and then to have the wherewithal and the foresight to see that was going on and to be able to remedy that and know that there is no such thing as perfect. You are just perfect just the way you are,
Yeah, I mean, I'm really learning that.
Yeah.
I'm really learning that even now with the book, because there have been so many challenges. There have been so many ways in which I've had to put myself out there that part of me just wants to hide. I want to like crawl under my bed and hide and just not even talk about it.
Now, this is the woman that wrote her poetry book that was published on sex. So, but there's layers. I mean, exactly.
There are layers.
There are different,
public
we're constantly
speaking
learning. I mean, I used to think that there was a point at which I would do X, Y, and Z, and then I would have arrived.
Yes, exactly.
But what I'm learning is there's really no such thing as arrival. We're constantly learning. I mean, the closest thing there is to arrival for me that I've discovered is, am I in the moment?
Mm-hmm.
Am I completely present? If so, I have arrived.
Yeah.
And I am enough.
Yes.
Right.
Totally.
And that's and you just
I
deal
that.
with the situation is here and now,
exactly.
which is so going back. I want to go back a little bit to the raw diet because you said it wasn't everything that
wasn't the panacea that I imagined it would be.
Mm-hmm. But but so you talk a little bit in the book about the fact we always want to, which is also a part of perfectionism, want to fit in. And here you are going to social events and parties and Girl Scout outings and stuff, and you're worried because you're not going to fit in. And I'm wondering from a social standpoint how you handled that, and physically what was going on during that time, whether that aided to your anxiety, how you got over that hump. And
that is such a great question, and it's a multi-layered question.
I know,
and,
right?
Looking back, I see it so differently. When I was going through it, I was a little bit defensive, I think, because I knew what I needed to do. I mean, I didn't know, but I had a strong internal guidance that was saying, this is what you need to do to heal. This is your path. This is what you have to do. But people around me didn't really understand what I was doing. And some of them were downright worried about me.
Right.
And I lost a lot of weight. I lost 30 pounds. And it's not like I started needing to lose weight. I wasn't trying to lose weight. That wasn't what was happening.
No, but it's the obvious outcome of the way you were eating
the
and
weight
taking
just
care
kind
of
of
yourself.
Disappeared. And so my mother was worried about me, see your doctor, make sure you're getting enough, vitamins and minerals and protein and, all of it. And my in-laws, my father-in-law, I loved him dearly, but he was raised on a farm in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And
this is
so
polar
it was
opposite.
Hard.
Yeah.
It was hard for them to understand. So socially, I struggled. I really, I would bring food with me. I remember the first time I showed up at my in-laws' house with my
container,
I forgot what it's called. My thermos, my little food box, and my insulated food box to keep the cold food cold. My mother-in-law said, well, you can't, what are you going to do when you go to people, what are you going to do when you go to people's houses? You can't just bring your own food with you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did. I mean, and that's what I did there, so that when they were having fried fish sandwiches and French fries, I was having a salad or whatever. And it was hard. It was challenging.
It's really hard.
Even as vegetarian, I've been vegetarian on and off in my life, and even just being a vegetarian, it can cause. I mean, I think people take food very personally.
Yeah.
And they actually literally, especially growing up in an Italian family too. Mine aren't Italian, but my children's father is Italian, and I mean. I remember when my mother-in-law would get so upset with my son or myself when I wouldn't eat meat, or or God forbid you don't eat the gluten and the pasta course doesn't get in. They take it very personally that it's a rejection of them and their cooking and their love even.
Right.
Yeah, food is love. So they
so
feel
I can imagine the raw
statement.
Yeah.
So what was so interesting about that, though? I think you're absolutely right. But what was so interesting was that, my strategy became, I'm not going to comment on what anybody else is eating, because everybody has a right to eat the way they want to eat. I'm going to eat this way because I believe this is the best way for me to attain healing. But I'm not going to comment on other people's food. And, people in my life became curious and interested. And some people, like my friend Tina, she, for my birthday, she did a whole raw meal for me. She made me the zucchini pasta and she made me raw brownies, and it was amazing. And even my husband, he would say well, let's try some raw stuff, and he started to feel better. And even my father-in-law at one time, years later, after this had started, he opened the door. We went to visit him in San Diego, and he hadn't been feeling well. And he said, "Gosh, maybe I should eat the way you eat." So over the period of time, I saw people's attitudes change, and I also saw at the same time a change in the global consciousness around vegetarianism and veganism.
Exactly. How long were you actually a raw?
100% raw vegan for 5 years.
5 years.
For 5 years.
Yeah, and I'm still vegan, but not 100% raw.
Well, it inspired me. I haven't got them yet. I ordered 3 raw cookbooks.
Oh, you did?
Just because some of the recipes you were describing sounded really amazing.
In your book. It's real.
Yeah.
Now, so is that difficult to keep up and to, like, if you're not someone who's proficient in the kitchen or
the difficult part was just learning how to do it.
Okay.
Once I learned how to do it, it was actually easier because I'm not cooking.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take any more time to eat raw or to eat vegan. It's just if you're not familiar with how to do that, you have to learn. So you have to get some recipe books and you have to learn how to. I mean, I got a dehydrator and I got a high speed blender, a Vitamix, where I could make soups and smoothies but it's actually probably takes less time than cooking food.
You just got to it's just sort of a new normal. You got to get used to.
It's a new normal, and you have to learn how to do it.
Yeah,
but then you said once you learned how to do the basics, then you got really creative and started.
I did. I started doing gourmet raw vegan stuff, like pizza crusts where I would sprout the grains days ahead of time, and then I would make dough out of it.
Yeah.
And
then you became the house that everybody wanted to come to the dinner party at.
Yeah, there was.
I would. My hand would go up.
There was some great stuff, but that was time consuming. Like one of the desserts I described that I had at this dinner party were these crepes, these raspberry crepes. And so I started to make the crepe shell. I liquefied banana and then I put it in my dehydrator for 15 hours. And then, so that was the shell. And then I cut it into strips to make for the shell. And then for the filling, there was 2 kinds of nuts, cashew nuts and macadamia nuts, and then a little bit of fresh lemon, a little bit of vanilla extract, and it made this beautiful filling. And then I rolled that up in the crepes, and then I just made a simple sauce out of raspberries and strawberries, just liquefying them.
Yeah, and
that's it. I don't even think I added agave or honey. I could have, but I don't think it's necessary. Yeah. And then I poured it on top of the crepes and put it in the refrigerator and let it sit. And I mean, the guests that I served that dinner to, the woman came from a home in the Napa Valley where they're just gourmet food lovers, and her husband too. They're just he grew up in Pacific Palisades with an artistic mother and family, and so they are real foodies. Yeah. And they just, the husband, Nick, he took a taste of it. He said, I don't think I've ever tasted a more delicious dessert than this.
Wow.
And I've experimented with cheesecakes, and I can't say that I did what I had to do so that I wouldn't get bored and so that I could have interesting and delicious
keep
foods.
your social life
for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Others. Yeah.
My social life did suffer a little bit.
And your home environment with your husband, did he?
And your child.
Were there 2? Yes, and your daughter. Were there 2 different meals being cooked?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3.
Sometimes 3. Yeah. And that was okay because it was never my intention to impose a diet on my husband or daughter. And there were just times when they were like, oh, wow, that looks good. Can I taste it? And it worked out, and they loved it. But,
that's wonderful.
I think eating, and this is really, when I look back over my journey, I was very rigid about my eating, and that came from a place of fear because I really wanted to get better. And so what I say to people now about food is, be willing to challenge the rigidity of your belief system and listen to your body and trust your wisdom.
Yeah,
that's it.
And eat what feels right. I was having a conversation with my sister last night, and she's been doing Weight Watchers and having great success, and I'm really proud of her.
Because it's working for her.
She's lost a bunch of weight. It's working for her. It's fabulous. And we were talking about, she said how she loves her Italian sausages. And, every once in a while, and she's lost a lot of weight, every once in a while she wants that Italian sausage, and that's a treat for her. And I said, well, you know what? Good.
Yeah.
Enjoy
Everybody's
it.
so unique. I have a saying in my practice called bio-individuality. And, from a biological standpoint, but also from just our uniqueness and who we are, we have to honor that, and we have to go with our wisdom and our intuition on what is right, which is what you did to come around. Yes, it could be a little rigid at first, because most times when what I help people do is like gradually crowd out the bad stuff and bring in the good stuff, because to do something very abrupt is not sustainable, as we well know. Absolutely,
exactly.
Where your bio individuality
and
comes
also
in.
Where your head's at. I mean, your head was at, I want to cure myself.
That was
So I'm going full in. So it wasn't
Right.
like you. Yeah, I mean, I totally
I've
get
seen
it.
it all
with
different ways.
Yeah, with a
depending on
restrictive
who
diet.
you're dealing with.
People said to me, wasn't it hard?
Yeah.
And to me, it wasn't hard because mentally, I'm like, I got to heal.
Yeah.
I want to get better. I want a
big
life
picture.
that is the kind of life that I've always dreamed of having. But I didn't realize that there was a lot of mental stuff going on that was also getting in my way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were back to what you were saying before. You approached it first through your physical and then the mental. Now, at what point did you then go into the emotional or spiritual part of it?
Well, I think the emotional part came from how I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The spiritual part was a higher intelligence, drawing my attention to who I really am.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I grew up as a dancer, believing that so much of who I was had to do with my body, because my body was my instrument. And then when I became injured and couldn't dance anymore, I realized, well, maybe I'm not my body. Hopefully I'm not my body. So then I started studying really hard. I went to school and I went to graduate school and I began to identify with my mind. I began to think, well,
As a writer.
as a writer,
Yes.
primarily as a
artist.
writer, definitely as a writer, because I lived a very rich mental life. So yes, as a writer. But I think what happened was I began to understand that not only am I not my body, but I'm not my thinking either. So if I'm not my body and I'm not my thinking, who am I?
Yeah.
And then when I was at USM, I heard the phrase, well, you're a human being, you're a spiritual being having a human experience, which, has become a cliche by now.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. And I understood it intellectually, but I hadn't yet had visceral experiences of visceral knowing, which in the spirit section in my book, I talk about some mystical experiences that I had that, and I've had more since then, that have made it clear to me, oh, I know who I am. Who I am is an eternal being, a light being, having this human experience. I understand that now because I have had experiences in which I have existed in multiple dimensions of time and space simultaneously outside of this body.
Whoa.
Very, very cool.
That's
now,
potent.
I just want to pull that back into the diet for a minute, because at what point during that journey between the sort of obviously not the physical stage, but the physical to the mental to the emotional and spiritual, where did you start to loosen up your diet and start to include more?
I love that question.
Loosen up.
Love that question.
Let go of.
Yeah, it was
some.
actually Mary who said to me at one point, and this was with regard to the medication, because I was in the Consciousness, Health, and Healing program at the University of Santa Monica when this anxiety disorder erupted, and I was afraid to leave my house, which meant that I couldn't come for 3-day weekends of study.
Oh, right.
And so I spoke to Mary, and that was when she was the one who said to me, have you ever considered the fact that maybe the Xanax is just another tool, is another gift of spirit for your, would you be willing to relax the rigidity of your belief system and try it just as a tool to help you? And I did, and I tried it for a week, and I didn't like it. So
Your body was so cleansed. It was probably, I have a really hard time with those things. I can't do it.
it made me
I can't
sleepy.
do
I
it.
was falling asleep. I was teaching a writing class and falling
It-
asleep.
It doesn't,
I
usually
tried
the
a
intention
quarter.
doesn't work.
and it was a quarter.
I
or
tried a
half.
quarter
Yeah.
once, and I became a zombie.
Yeah.
I was so depressed.
Yeah.
I thought, oh my God, this
Yeah.
is worse than I felt when
Yeah,
I
but
was.
I do want to answer your question.
Sure, yeah.
Because I kind of got off your question.
Yeah.
In my raw food journey, I met and interviewed a raw food chef named Rod Rotundi, and he opened up a restaurants in Culver City and then in Sherman Oaks called Leaf Cuisine. He now does Leaf Cuisine foods, and he distributes them through Whole Foods and other markets, I believe. He was a fascinating guy. When I was interviewing him, I was planning a family trip to Italy and Greece. And I was just thinking, gosh, what am I going to do when I travel? How am I going to make this work? And he said, so I asked him, because his grandfather was a famous Italian chef. And I said to him, what do you do when you travel? And he said, I eat everything and anything. And then I come home and do a cleanse. And I was like, really? Even meat? And he was like, yeah, I want to experience all the cultures through their foods and whatever. And I was not anywhere near being able to do that, but I admired his adventuresome spirit regarding food, and that he had no fear around it. Me, I was afraid if I ate anything other than the raw food, I felt like every bite I put in my mouth has to be with nutrition in mind. But he said, no, there's all kinds of reasons why we eat. We eat for pleasure, we eat for camaraderie, we eat for, he was talking, and I was like, to me, that struck me as a very healthy mindset around food. And I kind of thought like, wow, that's really interesting. So as I was going through it was actually during USM where I started understanding that some of my thinking was sabotaging my health and happiness. Then I thought, well, maybe, there are some foods that I miss. Like I miss hot soups, tofu, and I miss cooked beans and vegetarian chili. And, there were things that so I just sort of gradually started to introduce some of these foods into my diet. And then I paid attention. How do I feel now?
Yeah. And how did your body react the first time you?
Well, I do have an interesting story to tell about this. Okay. Mostly my body was fine. But I remember one day I made cooked quinoa. And I had the quinoa. I don't remember what I ate it with, maybe some veggies of some kind. But afterwards, I felt sedated. I felt like calm and just
good
peaceful.
Way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the quinoa left me feeling very relaxed, very calm. And I realized that it had this sedating effect on me, which the other foods didn't have. The live foods, I mean, when I first started eating the live foods, I felt like, and I had stopped drinking alcohol and I stopped smoking pot. It was like there was no buffer.
You were vibrating already.
Yeah. But that quinoa, it made me feel calm. And I thought to myself, you know what? This is not such a terrible way to feel calm. Like have a bowl of quinoa.
Yeah.
Or have a plate of quinoa pasta.
It's
like
good protein.
This isn't so bad. Like as far as like the levels of things that I could use to bring me down, to calm me, because I have a lot of energy. A bowl of quinoa is not such a bad thing.
Exactly. No, yeah.
I'm just thinking of all the wine drinkers out there thinking,
right.
glass of wine at the end of the night, or a bowl of quinoa
versus quinoa.
Yeah. I just want to something that just when you were sharing what I'm forgetting his name, but the leaf Rod, yes, one of the books I bought. I can't wait to read it.
Oh, good. And he's got great recipes.
Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah. So I was excited. But I remember Anthony Bourdain saying that when somebody said they were interviewing him, and they said, well, sometimes don't you look at some food and go, oh my God, I mean, just where it's been prepared, what it is, you're going to be violently ill. And he said, you have to pay, sometimes you pay first or later. With some of these people,
I love that.
Exactly. He said, if I was to reject that food in that moment, the cost of the relationship and getting to know these people and connecting with them, I've lost it then. He said, if I have to lose it a few hours later over the toilet, he goes, I'd rather it that way around than lose the connection.
That's so great. And
beautiful.
I love that.
I
love that. That's beautiful. And I was talking to my sister last night about treats.
Yeah.
Because, she was talking about liking her treats. And I was thinking about how when I was on this diet, because I felt like I had no choice, I had to recreate my treats. I had to find different treats. And I found that when I did that and I really got used to it, I didn't desire the other stuff that used to be treats.
That's right.
Like the old treats, because I knew how they would make me feel, they were no longer treats anymore.
Yeah. You had talked about, it was something in the book that you had taken out of your diet when you went raw and you tasted, I'm not sure if it was bread or pasta, but I know this feeling too, and it was tasteless to you.
Pasta.
It was pasta.
It tasted like cardboard.
Like cardboard.
Yes, exactly.
Pasta tastes like cardboard to me. I can't eat crackers. I can't eat bread. I can't eat pasta. I've taken it out of my diet for so long that I look at it. It's like looking at a piece of equipment.
Right.
Here.
It's like
it
not
doesn't
food.
have. It's not food.
See, I have the same with pizza. I love pizza, but I've been making my own, not the shop bought cauliflower crust. I make my own cauliflower crust.
Yeah.
Wow.
great.
I love that recipe.
They are so good.
Yeah.
Well,
But I
cauliflower
still
crust.
like, that I like because I love the taste of cauliflower.
Me too.
Exactly.
But
And I
not
get that whole
wheat.
satisfaction of thinking I've had a slice of pizza.
That's right.
And
That's
I
like
even fed
your
it to
zoodles.
my housekeeper comes once a week now, and she ate it. She was like, "Oh, this is great," and my son was like, "This is great."
It's so interesting,
But you've
though,
got to
how
find
you can
those.
find a new
Yeah.
normal
Yeah,
for
you do,
you. And like I
exactly.
said, it's gradual. It isn't something, and sugar is so hidden in everything
Right.
that it's very, very difficult to cure yourself, you know, from the sugar cravings.
Right.
100%. And there really isn't 100%, you know, a craving for that. But a lot of times, if you were to eat, you know, a Mounds bar and you've taken sugar
I used
out,
to love those.
yeah, imagine what it would taste like now. I can't even bite into it. It's nauseating for me
Yeah.
to think of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't do a thing for me.
And I want to shout out to Elisa Cohen because the work she's doing as a raw food educator and her book, Living on Live Food.
Yeah.
Without that book, I don't know what I would have done.
Oh, was that like a
Because it
Bible
was
for
just.
you?
It
I
was
think
like,
that's my other one.
It
I've
was
got.
like this thick, and it was like half filled with information and how to do it, and then there were testimonials. But the recipes, the recipes were great.
Yeah.
Well, there's this new thing now. They're saying that it's vegan before 6. Have you heard of this?
No, but I think I makes a lot of sense to
Yeah,
me.
You
it's
mean
just
after 6 p.m.? No.
No. Before 6, everything during the day, breakfast and lunch,
Is vegan.
just vegan. And then after that, you can either have be vegetarian or maybe have a piece of fish or something.
Yeah.
But just spend at least 2/3 of your day of what you're eating being vegan.
And assuming that's not like junk vegan food.
Oh, no.
Because there is junk vegan food out there.
Oh,
you know.
big time.
No, they're
People
talking
get
more
on that
about fruits and
bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, if
vegetables.
you're loading up on fruits, that's what I try to do, actually. That's, to me, my ideal diet is like, I love fruit in the morning. And that came from...
I know you
I love
did
that
Fit-
you did
Fit for Life.
I
Yeah,
did
Fit
that
for Life,
totally
Harvey
through
Diamond,
the
Marilyn
90s. The
Diamond. They were
diamonds, yeah.
awesome. I mean,
I loved it. That got me on the road
Yeah.
to where I am
Yeah,
today,
me
big
too.
time into
That
the whole
was-
nutrition field.
that was my beginning.
It made so much sense.
That was back in
Everything
the
they said.
70s, wasn't it?
80s?
Well, I started doing
I
it
think
in
it
the
was
late
80s.
80s, early 90s, right when
Really?
my
I
second
think it
child
was the
was born
80s.
was 89.
Wow, I
Yeah,
thought it was
the
even
70s was more
But it was an older
diet
book
for
when
a
I
small
picked
planet.
it up.
Yeah.
For me, that was
Yeah.
the 70s.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
80s, Marilyn and Harvey Diamond.
There was
Yeah, I
something because
love
my
them.
auntie used to do it, and she introduced us to it in like when I was about 15.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that
they
was in
were-
like 75.
I think Fit for Life came
Yeah.
out, I would guess, in the 80s. But
yeah, maybe, but she knew the version of it of
Yeah.
food combining. Put
Yeah,
it that way,
right,
Yeah.
not necessarily fit
right.
for life.
And then
which
there
is-
was Norman Walker, who was just way ahead of the grandfather of the Whole Foods movement. I mean, he was amazing. So yeah, I just started reading about these people and learning. And again, I think now I love eating fruit in the morning. I love eating a nice salad with lots of raw vegetables in the afternoon. And then in the evening, I go to something cooked. I can feel it.
Exactly.
Look, I can honestly, even though I love the way cooked food tastes now, because I've been doing more of it, I can feel that the food is dead. Like the life force of the food isn't there. I mean, it's comforting and it's
It is
yummy and it's
comforting.
warm.
Okay, I was
and
gonna
it's,
ask.
And I like that. Especially last night I made a vegetable lentil soup. I just took a bunch of vegetables I had in the house. I sauteed them in the pan with some onions and olive oil, and I threw in some lentils, and I let it cook a little bit, and it was delicious. And it was perfect for what I wanted. My husband hadn't been feeling well, and so I thought, how about a homemade soup? I bet that would feel good. And he said, yeah, that sounds good. And it was delicious. But when I don't have the great nutrients from the raw food, I find myself, I want to have a little bit of Skinny Pop later while I'm watching TV, or I want to have a
'Cause your
vegan
craving
chocolate chip
starts
cookie.
setting
Because
in.
the truth is, when I was eating 100% raw, I never had food
a
cravings.
craving. Yeah.
When I
satisfying
up my green intake,
Yeah.
I'm not craving sugar.
Yes.
Yeah, you're
I
getting
ate
all
a
the nutrients
yeah.
you need. You're not being depleted or deprived.
Yeah.
And so your
I
body
ate a
knows that.
fresh fake today after my green juice.
Wait, fresh what?
Fig. And it was
Fig.
so
I had some this
sweet.
morning. Yeah.
No, fig. It was so sweet. I could
Yeah.
barely take it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
rich.
That happens too with
Yeah.
fruits become
Yeah.
very, very
Because I do
sweet.
greens as well
Yeah,
during the
I
day.
do know that people who are healing themselves from cancer they can't do fruits. I know
'cause
people who have done that.
Your body,
The cancer
feeds
on sugar.
Yes.
and your
Right.
body doesn't distinguish
and,
whether
and
the
too
sugar,
much protein too.
Right.
I heard.
whether the
Right.
sugar is processed or the sugar comes from a natural
fruit.
source.
Right.
But it just sees sugar
And
it
all
eats it.
carbs turn into sugar, as
That's
you know, as a
absolutely,
nutritionist.
absolutely.
Well, I want to get back to what you do with your clients now, because I know you have a
What your
great
programs
practice,
are
and how, because I know that I love, what was the one thing you said? Let me remind myself here. But how you teach your clients, well, on all levels for a start. You help them on everything, but how you also help your writing clients find their voice in the world, not just within themselves, but in the world.
Well, that's just a whole nother. I mean, so for the last 10 years, I've been a writing coach and a writing teacher. And the thing about writing, especially the kind of writing I do, which is very personal writing, it brings up stuff for people. And I think what I really love about my work, and I've also recently started an anxiety coaching practice, which just came to me. It didn't. It
Well, I'm
wasn't
not
something.
surprised after the book.
It just came to me.
Yeah.
Somebody had seen a video of me and said to me, I wish there was such a thing as an anxiety coach. It wasn't what I did officially, but I knew I could help her. And so I was just honest with her. I said, well, I've never done this before, but if you want to try to work something out, I'll try. And it's been hugely successful, and there have been other people. And so I'm actually really enjoying that work. But it doesn't matter. Whatever I'm dealing with in terms of my writing clients, what I love and what I talk about in my book is how can I be the best me? How can and that too has become a cliche. How can I be the healthiest I can be, and how can I deal with all of my neuroses, which I didn't even really, when I started writing this book, I didn't even realize that I had them. I didn't even realize that I, had all these fears and I was a little neurotic. I remember when I sent my book to my first chapter to my editor, she said, well, I really like this narrator. She's a little bit, I don't know, like maybe like a hypochondriac or something. And I was like, what? I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And even after I'd written the book, I didn't know that that it was about anxiety. The original title of the book, subtitle, was A Midlife Quest for Health and Happiness. And then the sales team said, no, we want anxiety in the subtitle. Yeah. And then I gave it to a friend to read, and she said, another author friend, and she said, this is a book about you trying to heal your anxiety even before you knew you had anxiety.
Yes, yes.
And then, I realized, like, oh my God, I have to cop to the fact that I have been an anxious person. I'm an anxious person, okay?
Yeah. Exactly.
I didn't know this about myself until this book basically told me that about myself. So when you write, it's a process of discovery.
It's like you said, it's the fish in water. You swim in it so long, it's normal to you.
Yeah.
I didn't know. But actually, I've learned so much about managing anxiety and living with anxiety since I've written the book that I feel, even though I have lots of other ideas for the next book, I feel compelled to write a book about what I've been learning since I wrote this book.
Oh, I was going to ask you that because I know that we share an interest in the 3 principles, and I was reading the book and, okay, where's the bit where she gets to the 3 principles? And it wasn't there.
I know.
Well, there was touches. I could
know.
see little touches. The man that you eventually went to see with the anxiety, I was curious if he had
He was a cognitive behavioral therapist.
It was just cognitive behavioral.
Yeah, he wasn't even there. So this book is the journey. This is what got me to the study and the understanding of the 3 principles.
Okay. Talk about how did you get there?
This is how I got there.
Through the book.
Through the book. I mean, I didn't discover the 3 principles until...
Will you tell our audience what the 3 principles are?
The 3 principles are the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, as explained by a man named Sydney Banks, who had been a Scottish welder with a 9th grade education who had a spontaneous enlightenment experience. And he was able to identify through this experience or understand how we create our human experience. And this understanding has been picked up by a group of psychiatrists and psychologists and sociologists and people who work with mental health. Mm-hmm. And since the 70s, it's just been a growing understanding. And when I'm trying to think how I came upon it. I'm not sure how I came upon it, but
it's huge amongst the
it's
USM
huge. Yeah, it's huge among
now.
the USM community because it is a branch of spiritual psychology. And the thing that I find so interesting about the word psychology is that the root of the word psychology is psyche, which means spirit. And yet, anybody studying psychology in a university, my daughter's a psych major right now, there's no mention of the spirit.
Yeah.
It's all science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I think, and especially
Carl
since
Jung, I think, really addressed it from the
Carl Jung? Yeah, you're right.
He was the only
You're
one.
right. You're right.
Well, and Rogers and Carl Rogers and
that's
things.
true. That's true.
But
you're right.
But
there
Freud
have been,
certainly
but
not.
I'm talking about like traditional studies in
Yes.
psychology. Like right now, my daughter's going through a program in psychology. There's nothing spiritual. I don't know if they're going to. I don't know if they're going to study Jung and Rogers, and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I hope so.
Yeah.
So, so because my understanding in life includes the spirit, it just doesn't make sense to study psychology without an awareness of what role does spirit play in this body-mind-spirit configuration.
Makes so much sense.
So, so I discovered it, and I must say that since I think I discovered it through Nicola Bird on. No, I don't know.
Joe.
Or Rohini Ross. I mean, Joe.
Rohini,
I mean,
yeah.
I just discovered it, and I just started reading, and oh my gosh, when I read Jack Pransky's book, Somebody Should Have Told Us.
Yes.
It rocked my world.
Yeah.
It just rocked my world. And he wrote another, Seduced by Consciousness, and then Michael Neal's books, and all the people who are writing great books. Mara Gleason. There's I just started reading.
Amy Johnson is amazing.
Yeah, Amy Johnson. I mean, I just started reading, and I just couldn't stop. And and so now I find myself practicing with my anxiety clients what I myself continue to practice in my life.
I think it truly is. I mean, I know since I've been in it, my life has changed too. I mean, my level of fear, anxiety, self-doubt, I thought everything, more of something on the outside is going to sort of quell that anxiety or that fear, or learn more is going to make me more confident. And it's not. It's all inside already.
I know.
Yeah, but we always look to the outside. And we're taught
because
from
day
one
we're taught
to look to the outside.
Innocently.
So I'm really hopeful. I noticed that I'm going to take my mom, for example. I noticed in the last decade of her life, like as she started to age, she became a little more crotchety. Like she was always an amazing woman. Like she was confident and secure, and she was awesome. But I noticed that as she aged, she got a little crotchety.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to happen to me.
No,
I'm a lot like her, And
yeah.
I want to age, and I want to get better with age.
Yeah.
I don't want to become more fearful, more lonely, more scared. I want to
It's what my book is all
I
about.
want to expand.
Yeah.
And I have to say, having not seen you for 10 years, you exude calm and
It's working, Bella. It's working.
I mean, you were a little more anxious 10 years ago, as I was a little shyer and more insecure and fearful. So it's amazing. We're growing up nicely.
And we always continue to grow and learn and to become better versions of ourselves,
Absolutely.
and get rid of those limiting beliefs. Those limiting beliefs are really something that can hold us back. We're
just coming down to the wire here. So I know you do some wonderful coaching. So just give everybody your website, how they can contact you, whether it's for anxiety or writing.
They can. The easiest way is just rawmemoir.com. And that'll take you to the memoir page, but you can navigate your way from there.
Okay,
rawmemoir.com.
And do you have any events coming up or anything?
Say that.
Yes, I do. I host literary salons in Los Angeles, and there'll be
I love
one.
that they're called salons.
I know.
Oh, they're
You
totally
sit
salons.
around they're like a...
Well, I have a very unusual backyard because when we first saw the house, I saw that there was an elevated deck and then a lower area, and my first thought, having come from a dance background, was, wow, there's a little stage there.
Yeah.
And there have been theater directors attending the salons who have said, wow, this is an incredible outdoor theater space. So it's at my home, but everybody
where
brings
is your home?
food. It's in Studio City.
Okay.
But we have food and we have wine. There was one time when I was really into the raw, where I had Chef Be Live, fabulous raw food LA chef, lives on the west side. He catered it, and he made so we have food and we have wine and we have soft drinks that are non-alcoholic. And
are they
my
one-shot deals? Is it one day? Or
it's one day.
One day.
And,
okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt
I do
you.
them like 3 or 4 times a year, and I invite my students to read work that they've written in my class.
And when is the next one coming up?
you know what? I saw it on your website. There is one coming up.
September 6th.
I thought it was
It's a Sunday.
the middle, or
it's in the middle of
It's the
September.
It's the 17th of September.
Is it?
Yeah,
that would
it's
be
a
a
Sunday.
Sunday.
It's the
If it's a
17th.
Sunday.
Okay, so then
I
it's
have a
September
wedding
17th.
on September 16th.
Yes,
That's the only reason I
okay,
remember.
perfect. So it's September 17th at 2:30 in the afternoon, but
Okay,
people do need to
wonderful.
RSVP because we only
Yes.
we can accommodate 60 people, and that's it.
Okay,
So-
great. So we're really down to the wire
Yes, we
now.
just need your final words
Of
of wisdom
wisdom.
or anything that you want to impart to our audience, you
Yeah.
know, sort of on an ending note.
Wisdom, we all have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
Follow
exactly.
your own wisdom.
Follow your own.
Follow your own
Yeah.
wisdom and do what you feel is right, no matter what anybody around you is saying or thinking or saying.
Thank you
Exactly,
so
because they're
much.
just sharing
It's a good
their
one.
wisdom that works for them, but it's not your wisdom.
Right.
So follow
Well,
your wisdom.
Thank
I
you
love
for
that.
sharing your story. Because, like I said
Yes.
at the top of the show, I think that you can empower and help a lot of people with what you've done, what you've gone through, and people can realize that they are capable of changing too, and having it work for them. Thank you
Yes.
so
Well, you've
much.
certainly
We wish
inspired
you.
me, as you can tell.
Thank you for having me.
All right,
I'm
really
so
fun.
curious
Thank
about
you.
Raw now. We'll talk.
Yeah.
So thank you
Okay.
very much. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody. We're
everybody.
here next week. Come
Yes.
join us down Debbie's Mind, Body,
Body
Soul.
Soul.
Bye now.
Bye now. Thank you.